Hey everybody, welcome back to our tanning series. I'm William Smith with Kentucky Traditional Leather and Forge, and this is our fleshing portion of the video. If you remember last time, what we did was we sat down, we took our hides that we had salted, and what we did was we prepped this barrel with nothing but plain water, and we washed off all the salt, and we rehydrated the hides so that we could do this portion for it. Now, it's been a couple hours, and I've been stirring in order to make sure, that the hides have, been fully, saturated, and that they're as clean as possible, for it. But this is a dirty water and salty barrel, so we're going to come back to this, a little bit later on, for it. What I'm going to do now, also, if you remember, I have two hides. One hide in here is from last year, in order to show you what a hide that's been soaking or that's been salted for 9-12 months. What it does is it goes through a pickling process and it starts to lose its hair. This hide here that I've got, this is the newer hide that we just basically got, and the second hide for it is the hide that basically has been here at our place salted for about a year. A lot of the hair is coming off in the stirring process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this hide right here so it kind of drains a little bit, and then I'm going to show you guys why I have two beams here. Okay, follow me over here. Okay, what I'm doing over here is I'm placing a hide so that it can drain while I get ready for my other hide, for it. On this beam, what I'm going to do is, basically be, fleshing a hide that has just been pulled out of the water, so it's going to be very wet. The cloth style aprons that you have will soak up everything, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that to the side. With my scraper right there, I'm going to utilize the bag that I had for storing the hide in, like when it was frozen. Sometimes also when we go and get our hides, which we'll be showing a video of when we do our hide collecting, we utilize trash bags also. This is kind of a expedient apron that is also a whole lot more waterproof than, if you want to say, the cloth style. I've seen a lot of different people, get the commercial ones. For my students, this one works pretty well, for it. And so I thought I'd, show you guys. Basically a quick release. Pull it up. Make sure. Now what I do want to sit down and tell you guys is make sure you guys utilize some older clothes for this. Okay, where my shoes are concerned, my top and everything, I wear the older clothes. That way if they get bloody, salty, or anything, it won't really hurt them, for it. Okay, now let me grab the hide that we just pulled out, and we had it draining a little bit. This is the fresher hide of the two, and what we're going to do is we're going to lay the hide, basically starting in the middle, right here. What we're going to do is we're going to remove all the flesh and fat that's on this so that we can, go on to the next parts. This is also the fleshing that you would do, and then you would either tack out this hide once everything's removed, or you'd stretch it in a frame to let it dry so that you could do that flesh, stretch, and dry. Starting in the middle of the hide right here, for it, you're going to kind of clean you off an area to get started with. Pull the hide up, and what we're doing is we're working down the center line of the deer hide. This is, if you want to say, right in the middle of the back to the head, and then the butt of the hide, where the tail's at, is down on the ground. I'm going to go from this cleaned area that I've got right here all the way to the head, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go the opposite end straight down the center line. not too worried about being perfect with this. There is a membrane between the hide and the meat and fat that's on the hide, and we'll do that in another process. What we're worried about here is getting off anything that stands in our way of working the hide throughout all the other processes. Now if you guys see, I've got a knife that's around my neck. This is for areas that I don't want on the hide, or for trimming the hide. You know, a nice part about fleshing is that it's kind of like a visual inspection if you haven't seen the hide for a long time. You know, such as if I salted it last year. We're up on the thick part of the neck, which can sometimes be a little tough. But remove everything that you can. Some people like to remove the necks at this point. This is when I would use my knife. I'm not going to. Well, flip the hide around. I'm back to my clean area that I first started in, and the tail is at the edge of the beam. Start me an area. Flesh some. Move the hide up. I'm only working the hide in about a 12 to 18 inch area, that way that I'm not bent over, you know, basically, you know, hurting my back, and also that I'm not overreaching. You do kind of notice, I'm just sitting here letting everything drop, because I can clean it up later, and the hair that's on the ground keeps my hide from getting dirty. I can always wash off the hair, but if I stain the hide, you know, that's another story. Go ahead and move that out of the way. Okay, here's where we come to the tail. You guys want to leave the tail on, you know, this is the point when you want to take from here. Split the tail out. This is a really thin area, so kind of watch your fleshing a little. Remove anything that's there. Okay, now I've done straight down the center line of the hide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my clean spot. What I'm going to do, because it's a little bit easier doing it this way with what I've been taught, is to go from the center to the belly of the hide. Because of how everything attaches to the hide, it comes off a little bit easier this way. I'm just going to rotate the hide, kind of get the hindquarters area. And what I'm watching for is, just in case there's, you know, any score marks when the deer processors or, you know, hunters basically remove the hide. Sometimes what they do is little starter cuts where they'll cut into the hide, where they call it skinning the hide or skinning the deer. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that instead of going across the score mark, you want to go along with it. Whoever you get your hides from, each different person has a different technique. Some hide stations, you know, will have, you know, one person on each side of the deer. Sometimes it's one person. What I personally prefer to tan is what's called a pulled hide. You know, for it. This is where having a good relationship with your hide supplier, or whoever you get, is within your best interest. The score marks come this way. If you notice before, I came this way, now I'm going with them. Still not removing everything like this very thin membrane, but I'm removing as much as I can. Down the legs. This is the thin areas of the hide. You don't want to use as much, force onto it, but what you can do is kind of roll that fat off there all the way to the edge. Like that. A little bit more here. Coming down the leg. You'll find a lot of marks on the leg right here because, as I said, people utilize a lot of starter cuts with it. Now, what I'm going to do is trim the leg right here because this is the scent gland, for it. And I don't leave that attached to the hide. So I've got a small part that I trimmed there. Put the knife back up. I'm going to go back to my center area that I was in. And if you've noticed, I've picked up some hair. I'm doing just what I did to the other side, making sure my score marks not to go too far, not scraping too far. I'm inching up on the hide, slowing down a little bit on my fleshing. We're rolling that stuff off. Here's some meat. Now I'm going to go with the score marks and kind of attack from a different angle. Get all this area first. Come to my score marks where I've got a hole right here. What I'm going to do is up to the hole, around it, not really over it, because all that will do and putting force on that hole is just elongate it. Any holes that I make, or if you want to say cutting of the hide, basically is going to give me more holes that later on I'm going to have to sew up. Each hide you run into, there's going to be 1 or 2 holes into it initially, because deer are a harvested animal. So minimizing your holes and taking care of your hide from the onset basically makes sure that you have a good finished hide when you get done. Coming back to where my area is, you see right here where my hole is, and coming up, continuing to scrape around, very slow. The score marks are running this way down along with the leg and in the flank area. There's the leg. Continuing as gentle as I can, just kind of rolling things. I brought that hole kind of up here. It's past my edge this way, but it's this way on the side of my knife, so it kind of keeps it safe. I'll come back to that here in a minute, as I know what the situation is. Gone a little bit further. When I choked up on the hide, I basically pulled the hole this way. I'm going to come down here, finish up this leg first. Okay, and trim it. Once again, there's the scent gland. Right there. All this membrane. Just trying to get off everything. It cannot be tanned. I'm back up, the hole's right here if you remember. Pushing off and clearing. Moving to this side of the hole, where I had initially cleaned off this side, I'm going to push into the center of that hole to clean this side of it. That way I've gone 360 degrees around the hole, but I have not went over the hole in order to make it larger or, continuing to, make more cuts. cleaning off the last portion, for it. Nice thing about, being able to do this, I can tell you this is a doe, basically from the milk glands, for it. So this will be a good hide for, utilizing as far as a large hide for like garment leather, as long as I keep it at number 1. Okay, I'm right back here where I first started, coming this way, back to my clean area here, because I got a nice wide area. That part's been cleaned. I've got another hole right here, which looks like a entry or exit hole. I'm going to do like I did down there, which is clean up to the hole only. Then because it's on edge like this, I'm going to kind of come at it sideways. Once again, getting to this hole and keeping it round as opposed to going over it and making it larger. Okay, coming back, starting to get into the front leg area. If you remember, this is my neck area that I've already done. This is my clean section going into that. In this area around the shoulder area, I can be a little rough, but as I get into here, you'll start finding that in the thinner hide up underneath the armpit, people have a tendency to make some cuts here and into the legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, okay, here I got some very light score marks. I'm moving the hide parallel for the clean area that I had. Going from clean into the area that I want to remove. Kind of inspecting this area to make sure how much I want to keep versus if the score marks are too deep. Every now and then, what you want to do is you want to remove all the fat and grime from your scraper. Okay, I'm getting up here to where this is where everything spreads out. So I'm going to trim off just shy of all that because I got score marks there. I'm going to keep the integrity of my hide. I'm just going to come in here. There we go. Okay, that's the 2 rear legs, down the back, the neck, and the top front. So that means I've got to come back over here, back to my clean area, and what I'm going to do is go to this side of the belly and then finish up with that leg. Here's the entry, and I think the one that I had over here where the blood is, that's the exit. Coming up to it. I've got score marks on this side, right there. A little light. You can kind of tell how dark or how deep the score marks are, because when they go into the hide, if they start to look a little dark, when you look into them, what that is that's the hair follicles on the opposite side, so you know it's pretty deep. So I'm just going to kind of take small little chops at this, trying to get off as much as I can. And come back in there, a little bit later on. Okay, I'm going to come back up here to my clean area. Working towards that leg. Looking for any score marks. As I said, this is the thin area of the front underarm. Go very light. Just kind of push that up. Alright, I'm going to take, in the area that I plan on working, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I kind of try to lay it down the beam. That way it gives me a good, solid area instead of where I'm trying to work, flopping over. Just to make a note, this is my main fleshing beam is anywhere from 6 to 8 inches, and that beam over there is 4 inches because when I go to do my graining, I do all my tough work on that one. Where I go down the leg, make sure I got everything off here around the neck. Still checking for score marks. This is where I ended at. I'm going to push it to about equal with the other arm that I trimmed. Okay. Now, even though I'm done fleshing this hide, what I want to do is kind of make sure, go back over, see if I, missed any area. Stuff attached to the edges. Let's go ahead and get those. Okay. This hide's been fleshed, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this hide over to that beam, and then I'm going to bring that one over here. What I want to show you guys on this one is that with this one being a 9 months to a year old, this was last season's hides. Now what happens is this hair really comes out really easily. Okay, when you flesh this hide, you've got all this hair that you got to worry about balling up underneath the hide. And what you can do is you can use the back side of your scraper, or grabbing the stirring stick, which is a piece of wood. This will make sure that you don't cut into it. You can push that hair off. And by pushing that hair off, what you want is, this is the head of the hide is down here, the tail of it's right here, and what I'm doing is I'm going with the lay of the hair. The hair actually removes, a lot easier that way. This is called, hair pushing, especially when some people try to slip the hair for it. Okay? Or like I was saying, with the back. Now, when you remove the flesh like that's on that hide, and when these hides have been soaking long enough, or if it's, like a hide from last year, and you remove the hair, what you've got is nothing but the skin that you're going to be tanning. That's called rawhide. Rawhide is usually something that is, stretched and dried, that way it stays in a preserved state. But the raw hide is because it has not been tanned, it has not been preserved, and this will be our working piece that we use. We're going to stop right here and basically give you guys, if you want to say, just a idea of what a older hide does, what a newer hide does, And what we're going to do is, in the next video, we're going to talk to you about cleaning your tools and keeping them clean throughout the process. While these hides are here, if you notice, that one's in the shade. This one here, I'm going to leave this right here. If you'll pan on back here, what we've got, okay, is a barrel full of hair and salt. And what can happen is, if you pour this just on any lawn or anything like that, the salt will kill the grass. Where I'm standing here is actually a gravel road in front of my garage, and we sat down and we put the salt straight onto here so that it can get rid of the grass. So at this time, what I'm going to do is empty the barrel, and then we'll come back in the next video where I'll show you how to clean everything out. Okay? Catch you next video.